Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Hamburg, Mauricio Shogun Hua versus Anthony Lionheart Smith. And Shaq, it's going down this Sunday afternoon in Hamburg.
Yeah, it's a great card from top to bottom. Anthony Smith, moving up to that 205-pound division. He claims the 20 pounds of water is the best decision he's made in his career. And we know Shogun's on a 3-fight win streak, but he hasn't fought since John Vellante. So we know this is going to be a great fight. Shogun is must-see TV every time, and Anthony Smith is pretty much in that category as well.
And, a couple of little facts here is that this is going to be the third legend that Anthony Smith has fought on his little run. Obviously, he knocked out Rashad Evans. He knocked out Hector Lombard. Now he's got the chance to go out there and knock out the legend, Mauricio Shogun Hua, the former UFC light heavyweight champion. And a lot of people also don't know because people are talking about how Shogun's on his way out. Well, little fact, Shaq. This is the longest win streak of Mauricio Shogun Hua's UFC career. And I'm talking longer than when he was the UFC champion.
Yeah, man. Shogun, he might be one of those Brazilians that's getting better with age, but, we're going to find that out on Sunday. But what he's done these last three fights, he's faced adversity in all three of them, and he's came back when he got dropped by a little knock, came back and won the fight. His fight with Vellante, he got hurt early and came back and knocked him out. And the fight with Corey, Corey was edging out those rounds, and Mauricio put a glove to chin and got his win. So he's been accomplishing his job lately.
Shogun's one of those guys, unlike Rashad, we knew Rashad's been done for the last 4 years. But with Shogun, when you talk about a puncher's chance, I don't care how old or gassed out that guy is, he always has the capability of knocking someone dead.
100%.
Obviously, it's going down this weekend, this Sunday, so let's break down this card start to finish. And first up in the bantamweight division, we got Damien Stasiak. He's minus 115. The comeback on the newcomer, Pingyuan is minus 105. Now, it's an interesting fight, man, because Damien Stasiak, he's a very experienced guy, Shaq. Obviously, he went the distance with Pedro Munoz. You know that he had a fight of the night with Brian Kelleher. He's also finished guys in the first round. And now he's welcoming the newcomer from China to the UFC on hostile territory in Europe. How do you see this fight going down?
Yeah, Stasiak's a tough guy. My boy Webster, his best attribute is probably, I would say, surviving and, pulling off these sneaky single legs and, eventually leading into at least his UFC wins, his domination over Pehek and his, not a fluke sub because Damien kind of does pull things like that off, but over Davey Grant. But there's one common thing in Damien Stasiak's fights, he gets bullied around the cage in every fight because, physically he's just not that strong and, his techniques are a little inefficient. He likes the spins. The spins are nicely timed. He is a karate world champion, but his spins are inefficient. The later the fight goes on, those spins just become very telegraphed, and then you leave yourself open for counters off those spins. So Pingyuan Lu, this is definitely a big step up in competition. He's been fighting these guys in China, but he's got experience against Russians. He's been putting in some work at Alpha Male with his boy Song Yadong, and I think Pingyuan's got all the skills. Although we haven't seen it against this level of competition, I think he's got all the skills to win this fight in his debut. I think Stasiak's a good guy to make your debut against. Like I said, his cardio is not the best, even though he did submit Davey Grant in that third round. But I think his best attribute is, eating punches and, getting beat up, getting pushed around the cage. If he can find a way to, pull off these little flukes or, these little crazy submissions, then, then props to him. But I think Pingyuan's going to come out here. I think he's the much bigger guy, the much better striker. I think he's going to take Damien Stasiak down. And when I think Damien Stasiak gets fatigued, I think he's going to rely on his inefficient techniques, and it's not going to work. So I think Pingyuan Lu is going to get his hand raised.
Stasiak's got some sneaky moves in his arsenal. Obviously, we know he's got a very nice back take. You saw that on full display when he fought Yalzin Meza in that first round. He stole that first round with that beautiful back take. And also the fight with with Felipe Pedrick. I mean, Damian Stasiak showed in that fight that, hey, if you're not ready to compete inside the UFC's octagon, if you're a regional level fighter, I'm going to expose that and finish you in the first round. And, normally when guys get signed to the UFC, Shaq, and they lose their first fight, they always get a second chance. You know who didn't get a second chance? My boy Felipe Pedrick didn't get a second chance because Damian Stasiak beat his ass that badly, Shaq. But now he's taking on this newcomer, Pingyuan Liu, and I gotta say the up-and-coming Chinese prospects are very tough guys, and I've noticed that in Pingyuan Liu's style on the regional scene. It kind of reminds me of my boy Song Yadong. Now, whether he's going to have that kind of success, that remains to be seen because they are not the same person at all. But that being said, I've seen him knock people out. I've seen him tap people out. So I know for a fact that he's been putting in work in. He's also come to the States for a little bit and, gotten different looks around here. So I actually am going to pick him to come in here in his UFC debut. And, I know it's close to a pick'em, but the line is slightly edging towards Stasiak. So I'm going to go with Pingyuan Liu for a slight upset. Now, next up in, I believe, the UFC light heavyweight division, we got Darko Stosic. He's minus 260. The comeback on Jeremy Kimball is plus 220. So which way you leaning, man?
But Darko's one of Mirko Krokop's proteges out of Croatia. He's a big power puncher, and he's got good top control, and he's a big stiff, And Kimball, Kimball's like what we like to refer to as that guy that you look at him and you'll be like, man, this guy's really fighting. But Kimball's more experienced. He's got better wins. He's been in there he's got wins over Chidi and Jakawani. I mean, on the given day, Kimball is that type of guy to surprise you. He's the guy that if you take lightly, he might, pull off a big KO like how he did against Stansbury as the underdog. So he's a guy you got to – in this fight with De Lima, I thought it was very competitive up until he, he slipped and got his head bashed in against the fence. But, of course we can say, oh, it was a slip and this and that. But I'm noticing a lot of those things happen to Kimball a lot in his career, man. He likes to come out with these big explosive starts. And then when his opponents survive that, he generally – finds his way to the mat, and, generally he gets tapped out. I mean, he's been tapped out, over 8 or 9 times. So there's one common thing in Jeremy Kimball's career that he will tap out. Now, Darko, of course we know Darko is a fraud, but we know that Darko, that doesn't mean he can't win this fight. Eventually it'll come down. I don't think it's going to play out in this fight. I think Darko's going to handle business. I think he's going to be too physical. Yeah, he's a stiff, but I think Kimball's going to come out here with a big explosion early like he always does. And when that doesn't work, I think Darko's going to tie him up, muscle him down to that fence. And then I think Kimball, his clock will be ticking away. I think eventually he'll get finished.
Yeah, I mean, look, when your name is Darko Stosic, I mean, it's like, I am Darko, Lord of Darkness. You know what I'm saying, man? You just don't want to put your guy in there against a guy like that. And, Jeremy Kimball, he's got one job. Come in and take this L. I mean, that's what he's good at. And occasionally he'll pull off an upset. But when we talk about that Josh Stansbury fight, I mean, was that really an upset? I mean, they didn't have any plans for Josh Stansbury. I guarantee you they got some plans for Darko over in this Euro scene. And, yeah, he is a bit of a stiff. And Jeremy Kimball, despite him being a fat slob, he does hit kind of hard, and, he's won a lot of fights. He beat my boy Chidi Njokuani. So, all that being said, I think they are going to have a very exciting fight while it lasts, and I see Darko catching him. So, I'm going to go with the favorite here. And next up in the bantamweight division, we got Manny Bermudez. He's minus 280. The comeback on Davey Grant is plus 240. Now, Shaq, would you feel comfortable laying on minus 280 when there's a chance that Marc Goddard is going to be involved?
Yeah, that's the big thing in this fight. Manny Bermudez, he likes to chain submission attempt after submission attempt, and it's super impressive. But we know on the feet, he's scared to get hit. Every time Albert touched him on that chin, I mean, he got hurt. And that's not the first time. I mean, we've seen him back on his local scene fights. Remember when he pulled off that robbery against Almeida? I mean, Manny's got a history of eating punches and quivering away and, shying away from exchanges. But his jiu-jitsu is on point. We know that he's going to chain and chain and chain, and eventually, guys get tapped out. Now, we've seen Davey Grant in here with somewhat of a similar style, not really, with my boy Stasiak. He was beating Stasiak up all over the octagon, and then third round he's starting to get a little tired, and then he finds himself in an armbar, and I felt like he left Damian Stasiak hanging around too much. And if you look at Davey Grant's record, he's really not a knockout artist. He's more of a he's more of a submission guy himself. He's more of a jiu-jitsu guy. So, I think if Marc Goddard's reffing this fight, and if you have money on Manny Bermudez, you better be very careful, because now when I bring this up, we know that Marc Goddard's from Cage Warriors, and he's from England, Cage Warriors, a lot of these, UK promotions. And let's just be honest here, he's friends with those boys. So, and we already seen him pull off some questionable things in a Davey Grant fight before against Marlon Vera. And we just know that, with Manny's style, if the sub attempts don't work, we know that there's going to be a lot of grabbing the fence or toes in the fence, or, grabbing the shorts, trying to, pull off, get the right angles for the submission. So it's going to be a lot of questionable things. If Goddard's reffing this fight, I'd be very nervous with money on Bermudez. So in my opinion, it's a dog or pass situation. But how can you trust a guy like Davey Grant who, doesn't really have the type of finishing ability with the strikes? And so, therefore, I think Manny Bermudez will pull it out by submission. I think, best case scenario, he just comes out and it's too much for Davey Grant. But if it doesn't, Manny's not a very efficient guy on the feet. He's it's just pretty much sub or bust. So, I'd stay out of that fight. But I'll take Manny Bermudez.
I mean, it really is sub or bust, because if you watch that split decision fight he had against Almeida, don't ask me how he won that fight, Shaq, because I just don't know. But that being said, man, if someone's going to get fucked in this fight, this time it's going to be the opposite way around. This time it's going to be Manny that gets fucked, especially if Marc Goddard is reffing that fight. And all I got to say about Marc Goddard, man, I mean, let's say Manny's going for a Darce choke. Let's say he's got something locked in. It looks like the fight's about to end. He's going to... Do you remember when Jared Brooks fought Davison Figueiredo in Brazil, and he takes him down, and it's 1-1 going into the third. It all comes down to that final takedown, and Jared Brooks gets that takedown, and then Mario Yamasaki, he's good friends with Davison Figueiredo, and he made up that Jared Brooks grabbed the shorts and stood him back up from a very dominant position. Well, Marc Goddard's on that exact same shit, and if you have a locked-in submission on Davey Grant and Marc's reffing that fight, he'll figure out a way to be like, stop, stand up, 1 point, 1 point. He's grabbing the shorts, He'll pull all that shit, and, it's worked in my favor before. I mean, I remember when I bet Jack Hermanson against Talis Latis, and my boy Jack had a rib injury, and thank God it was Marc Goddard reffing the fight, because Marc goes up to Jack's corner, and he's like, do something about his rib. You know what I'm saying? So, my boy Marc Goddard, if you're a Cage Warriors or UK fighter, he loves you, so I would be super nervous betting Manny Bermudez against Davey Grant here. But that said, I still think Manny Bermudez can put him to sleep, because Davey Grant, look, I think he's more interested in coaching. I don't think he really wants to be there. He fights once every couple of years. I mean, it is what it is. I'm going to go with Manny Bermudez here, but if Goddard's reffing, be very careful. Now, next up in the UFC light heavyweight division, we got a battle of prospects. We got Justin Ledet, he's minus 125, and the comeback on Aleksandar Rakic is plus 105, Shaq.
Yeah, I see Rakic as a popular underdog this week, and, I understand, he had a great debut. He's a big boy, big-time kickboxer. You can tell he picks his shots, he doesn't rush, but at the same time, he did fight a 40-year-old guy named Francimar Barroso. And shout out to my boy Francimar, because he's putting in serious work in the PFL tournament.
Wait, Shaq, you mean he fought the #1 seed in PFL?
He fought the #1 seed in PFL, and that #1 seed in PFL is on its way to $1 million. But Rakic is a serious prospect. I think he's got a bright future. And Ledet, I feel like Ledet's been getting a bad rap, and I don't know why, because his last fight went to split decision, but between you and me, Dan, that fight wasn't no split decision. And I feel like Ledet has shown I feel like he's been 30%ing motherfuckers, to be honest. I mean, when I talk about real boxing in the sport of MMA, you got to have Justin Ledet's name in there. I know we all love, the Diaz bros and, guys like, I hear people saying like Jorge Masvidal is this elite boxer, and, Danny Hot Chocolate's a pro boxer, Holly Holm's a pro boxer, but I'll tell you right now, I think Justin Ledet's got all those people beat in terms of just pure boxing. I mean, the guy, makes guys look silly with one punch, and that's just with the jab and the left hook. I think he's got more in his arsenal. I just think boxers have the tendency to just use what they need. And I feel like Rakic, he's going to definitely need a little bit more, and I think we're going to see a little bit more. I really don't think we've seen that right hand. I mean, his last fight against that 265-pound heavyweight that puts people's lights out. I mean, he popped his eye. I mean, just put it this way. I've heard a couple people go in between rounds saying I can't breathe because of that jab. And, of course we can sit here and say, oh, it was Chase Sherman. But, I mean, he made Chase Sherman not be able to breathe. He butchered Chase Sherman to the point that Chase Sherman was pretty much just bewildered, man. And, I mean, he couldn't breathe because of one punch. So, I think if you're basing Ledet off, thinking all he has is a jab, I think he's got way more in his toolbox. And let's not forget about the jiu-jitsu. I mean, the guy's got 5 submissions on his record. He trains with Jaculino on those mats. And, I mean, we saw him hit an easy double leg against another heavyweight in Marc and made it look real easy. So, I mean, Ledet does his job a lot. So, I feel like he's won every round inside that UFC cage, to be honest. And I feel like he's giving me, no reason to, not write him off like people are, but it's interesting to see everyone go against him. But, this is a battle of top prospects, man. Rakic is serious. He's a big boy. I think, like, Rakic is smart enough in terms in the striking department. If Ledet, does like to back up in that fence. The thing with Ledet is Ledet doesn't really eat anything clean, Dan. I mean, he shells up or he rolls with the punch. It's going to be hard. But, Rakic seems like he's smart enough to go around the shell and land the hard shot. So it's going to be interesting. I think this is a really super fight, but I do think Rakic is going to have to respect that jab. I think that jab is that good. I think, he's got his right hand up ready to parry, but Ledet's going to be throwing a serious volume of them, and I think we're going to see other aspects of Ledet's game. I think he's going to let the full arsenal show. He's a little bit lighter. I know he had to eat right to make this 205-pound cut. I feel like at heavyweight, he was still 30-27, guys, and, he seemed a little bit lackadaisical in there. He just used what he needed to use. But now I think he's going to up it up. I think Rakic is going to bring the best out of him. It wouldn't shock me if Rakic got the job done. I have a very high opinion of him as well. But I think I'm going to go against the public here, man. I'm going to take Ledet. I think he's got more aspects to his game. I think that jab is serious, and I think the feints are serious, and I got Ledet.
It's funny to me how people write off that jab of Ledet, like, oh, he's just got a jab. It's like, do you know what it feels like to get your eye closed from a jab? Do you know what it feels like to get your head popped back? You get that nose broken and your eyes start watering. I mean, that's what Ledet does to people. And, he literally has taken 0 damage in his 3 UFC fights. He literally is just chilling out and dominating these guys. And it's pretty impressive, man. It's not often you see a high-level 1-2 in MMA, and that's exactly what he brings to the table. And now, obviously, for him to drop to 205 pounds, that means he took his nutrition to a whole nother level. And I heard some stories about what he's been doing. I don't want to actually say it on here just because I haven't confirmed it, with any reliable sources. But all I know is for him to get to 240 to 205, he's been taking shit extremely seriously. And I think coming in here against a guy like Rakic, I know the game plan for both guys. I mean, look, Rakic, he's got to crowd Ledet. He's got to throw big volume punches. Even if they don't land, just make it look like you're landing. Mix in leg kicks. And possibly, I know he's been training at ATT, possibly throw in a takedown or two, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as that against a guy like Ledet. I think people are under the assumption that Ledet's just a one-dimensional guy, only because he's had to use, his jab and his cross in his 3 fights. They forget he double-legged and choked out Marc Godbeer, so technically he's not a one-dimensional fighter, Shaq. But, I mean, it's like just because he's not going out there throwing spinning shit, all of a sudden they label him as a one-dimensional fighter, and I just don't view it like that, man. I think that the weapons he does possess are very high level, and I got a lot of respect for Rakic, too. I think he's a serious prospect as well, and I think he does have paths to win this fight, but I think that Justin Ledet's strengths are so strong that he can literally cruise to victories in these fights, and the winner of this fight is going to emerge a top contender at 205 pounds. Excuse me, a top prospect at 205 pounds. And initially, I was going with Rakic, but I think I changed my mind. I think I'm going to go with Ledet here, and I think he wins a split decision. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got Emil Meek. He's -160. The comeback on Bartosz Fabinski is +140. Now, have you heard from my boy Bartosz the Butcher lately?
Yeah, my boy Bartosz has been, being a Polish gangster down there on Loads. Bartosz. We all know Bartosz really doesn't need it, but it's good to see my boy Bartosz back, aka the Polish Khabib, aka the Polish Staller, the Polish land prey guy. But hey, you got to respect that style, and I definitely respect it. Mac's had a great UFC career so far, even though he's 1-1. That fight with Jordan Mean, I know Mean was coming out of retirement and all, but I thought it was a great fight. I thought he beat Mean's ass personally, even though he had a little rib injury and things like that. What's up with those Norwegians having those rib injuries, then?
Dude, all I know is that the 2 times that those Norwegians had rib injuries, they both came back and won their fights. So whatever's in the water over there, those are some tough motherfuckers. Those are some real warriors.
Yeah, for sure. And Bartosz, I feel like initially I was thinking Mac was probably gonna put him away, but man, I gained a lot of respect for Bartosz style because, that style, even though the rest parts of his game really aren't that good, that style, he's what we call a specialist. He's an elite specialist in one area. And I know people are gonna say, well, Max stuffed against Kamaru and he got back up, but the thing is, it could be the same thing here, man. Bartosz is an elite lay and prey staller, head in between your legs, trying to take you down. And, I don't think he's a complete novice out in space either. I think, he's got a decent jab, overhand right, and it's really just an attempt to get back into the clinch. And, once Bartosz gets that leg, it's pretty much over. And he's got the cardio to still lift you up all the way in the air and dump you on your head. Now, Mech, he's been putting in some work with Kamaru again for this fight, which is, perfect. But I think each guy has a completely different style of grappling. I think Kamaru, is a little more comfortable on his feet, as where Bartosz knows where his skills lie. Bartosz ain't interested in exchanging any type of punches. Bartosz has very good submission defense. He stays calm. I think he's just more of a smotherer, and Kamaru's more of like a more well-rounded MMA fighter, as where Bartosz is just interested in smothering you and gassing you out and putting you right back in the same position. So, I could totally see a scenario where Meek is getting up and he keeps getting up, but Bartosz is just the aggressor. And, if I said Bartosz has a clear path to victory here. All he's got to do is do his bullshit for 10 minutes and he's going to win the decision here. I think it's a situation where Mech has to finish him, and I don't think that's going to happen. So, I'm going to take Bartosz with that plus 140. I think the line's about accurate, even though he's coming off a gigantic, massive layoff. I do have my concerns of whether he can push that style for 3 rounds, but something tells me that Bartosz is one of these 3-year layoff guys. He's in that category with the Claudio Enrique da Silvas. These guys coming off these big layoffs been winning a lot lately. Chad just won last week, so I'm gonna go with Bartosz in the upset. I just think the pressure is gonna be too much. I think Meek's gonna fight well. I think he's gonna hurt Bartosz, but I just think Bartosz is gonna be the aggressor and win on points.
Yeah, obviously, if Bartosz is gonna win, it's going to be via the grind. There's no debating that whatsoever. So he definitely has that path to victory, and he's pretty damn good at it, man. The guy is a relentless grinder. He's super strong. He pulled it off at 85. He's pulling it off at 70. Took a couple years off. I know he's been doing some things outside that cage, if you know what I mean, Shaq. But now he's coming on here against Emil Meek, and the thing with Emil is that he's been facing way higher level competition than my boy Bartosz. We're talking about Rousimar Palhares to Jordan Mean to Kamaru Usman. So he knows what a top 3 welterweight feels like, and Bartosz has a very watered down version of Kamaru's fighting style. And I gotta say, out of all the guys that have fought Kamaru, I know Meek got 30-27, but Kamaru's usually out here handing guys 10-8s. He's usually coming out here and putting guys out for 6 months to a year. You saw what he did to my boy Strickland and broke his orbital. You saw what he did to Serginho when he knocked him out. You saw what he did to Warley Alves when he absolutely broke him and put him out for a year. So when Kamaru goes out here with these guys, you saw what he did to Damian Maia. When Kamaru comes out here with these guys, he absolutely destroys them. I know, the whole 30% bullshit, but I think that was just credit to Emil Meek. Is actually a really super tough guy, and he got taken down 9 times. That means he got up 10 times. Now, the question here is I do think he's going to be able to get back up from the takedown. But from there, will he be able to create that separation and that space necessary to get off on his strikes, which are a lot better than Bartosz's, and capitalize on an opening and finish the fight? And I actually think that he will, Shaq. I think that Emil is a very opportunistic guy. I don't think that he's the kind of guy that gets discouraged when he gets taken down, that accepts the bottom position. I think he's a guy, he's trying to push the head down, he's trying to hit a switch, he's trying to wall walk, he's trying to use butterfly hooks, he's trying to do the whole bit to get back up. And from there, he's an opportunistic finisher. I mean, I know you saw how he finished Haqparast on the local scene when Haqparast had his head between his legs and Meek was firing those huge elbows, and I know you've seen a couple of his other finishes, and he's also a guy that can overcome adversity inside that cage. I mean, you saw him get a rib injury the first round against Jordan Meehan, and then he comes back and he wins the next 2 rounds. So I think he's a super tough guy, and in Bartosz's fights, even though it's been very impressive, it's been very dominant, he's definitely a guy you want on your betting team long term. But in this specific spot, I mean, I see him in there with the total jobbers of jobbers. I'm talking Cans. I'm talking the Hector Urbinas and Gareth McClellans. He fought the worst middleweight and the worst welterweight, and even though he completely dominated them, those guys had little seconds in those fights where they almost got a sweep, or they almost had a choke, or they almost did this. I don't think there's going to be an almost with Emil Meek. I think he'll actually, when he sees that opening, I think he'll be able to capitalize after getting grinded a little bit, and I think he's going to come out here and finish Bartosz Fabinski. So I do have Emil Meek for the win here. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got Sergeant Nick Hein. He's minus 155. The comeback on Damir Hadzovic is plus 135. Now, Shaq, when guys beat Damir Hadzovic, aside from Taisumov, they usually lay on him. I mean, the blueprint's been out. Damir's kind of like my boy Pettis, not in the sense that he's got a Taekwondo style, but just in the sense that he can knock dudes out standing, but we know the kryptonite. That's push him up against the fence. And 5 seconds into this fight, we're going to be saying stuff like, oh, look, Damir's on his back, kind of like Felipe Aranches or Anthony Pettis, but on the feet, he's a motherfucker. And one thing I've noticed about Nick Hein is he likes to stand and bang. So my question is, I know he's got this judo background and this and that, but usually when he takes guys down, he lets them back up because he just loves to stand and bang too. Is he all of a sudden going to switch up his game plan here, Shaq?
Yeah, one thing remains constant in Damir Hadzovic fights. He's always getting tied up, and he's always on his back stuffing takedowns. And, it's unfortunate because his striking is really good. He kind of reminds me I compared him to, I said he's the Euro Alex White. They throw devastating haymakers on the feet, but you tie him up and, that's your path to victory right there. Hein's definitely on the decline, in my opinion. He's getting a little older. His fight with Tang Hyun Bang, I mean, you could see the signs. He's kind of wobbling when they're exchanging hooks. But Hein's a smart guy. Hein, like you were mentioning before, he likes to stand up for the most of the time. But he does hit at least one takedown every fight, and they're judo-style takedowns, which is, something, I'm not sure Damir's experience. Damir's from Denmark, I'm not, downgrading Denmark MMA because I'm sure it's good. But, I just feel like he doesn't have the access to this type of wrestling training that he needs to succeed in the UFC. I think he's just comfortable in his own environment, which is, no shame because he might win this fight because I think he's got a big advantage on the feet here. I think Damir on the feet is not a complete mismatch, but, I think he's going to land the harder shots here and really hurt Hein. I feel like the thing is when he does hurt Hein, I feel like Hein's going to instantly go into a mode of wrestling. I've been seeing him putting in some work in California on those American wrestling mats. So, it's going to be interesting because I know he's not I know Damir ain't going to take him down, but Hein's a good point fighter, man. Hein does what he does. He does what he does. He does what he needs to do to win. He's not gonna come out and exert himself early. He's gonna manage his cardio throughout the 3-round process. He's gonna use efficient techniques. At the end of the rounds, he's gonna look for takedowns. And I know we could sit here and say, well, Damir fought Alan, who's a different physical beast. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, but at the end of the day, those things happen. Even in his fights that he won, against Marcin, he got took him down the entire time, or his fight with Martin Delaney and Cage Warriors, he got tied up a lot. So, it's going to be interesting. It's just plain and simple. I think we are going to see a little bit more shots from Nick Hein. I think that Damir will put the fear in him right away when Hein feels these shots. So I think Hein will be in wrestling mode a lot more than what we're used to seeing from him. And I think Hein's a type of guy that likes to adapt. But I think my boy Hein, his day's coming. I think that Damir, I don't think his takedown defense is going to be, necessarily too much improved or anything. But I do think that Hein, like you were mentioning before, will let him back up just to let him back up because, Hein just likes to get takedowns to score points. What are all of Hein's wins by, Dan?
Decision.
Exactly. So we know he likes to just use them to score points. I think Damir at some point will catch him on that chin. I think that chin is deteriorating. I thought he looked good against Davey Ramos, but, after that big layoff and then go down to Brazil, this is a guy that, Heinz on the low-key been looking for a lot of answers, Dan. You remember that failed attempt to 145 when he was supposed to fight Zabit? Then he comes back up to 55 and after this big layoff, and then the fight goes down like that after you drop him. So, I do think Hein's days are numbered, even though he's got a great UFC record. So I'm going to take Damir for the upset by knockout in the second round.
Yeah, I think that Nick Hein's game plan here has to be, the same game plan you use when you beat a guy like Anthony Pettis. You have to clinch him up against the fence, you have to take him down, and you have to hold him there. And you can't fight this guy in space, And once again, I'm not comparing Damir's striking arsenal to Pettis. You're not going to see him jump off the cage and kick Nick Hein's head into the fifth row or anything like that. But what you will see is you're going to see an aggressive guy going forward, landing big punches, and potentially timing a big knee as well. I'll always have a soft spot for Damir for cashing that plus 265 against that fraud Marcin held. But now with Nick Hein, Nick's a guy I got a lot of respect for. Nick's a guy that his only losses are against James Vick and Davey Ramos, and he dropped both of them in both of those fights, Shaq. But that being said, I do feel like, he is getting a little bit older. You saw the fight with Kasuya, you saw the fight with Taiyun Bang, and those were some stand-up wars, and, I say wars, they were stand-up fights, and he definitely has slowed down a bit, and he loves to stand and bang. If he stands and bangs with Damir Hadzovic, he's going to hit the deck, and that's just the bottom line. The question is, I've been following Nick Hein, and, I've heard a lot of stories that he's been on the wrestling mats constantly for this camp. So now my question is he on those wrestling mats every day? Because in his last fight, he got blast doubled for the first time in his career, and he never wants that to happen ever again, just period? Or is he on those wrestling mats every day because he knows the way to beat Damir is to push this guy up against the fence and grind him out? That's my question. I really want to know. If someone could give me the answer to that, I could pick this fight confidently. But since I don't know the answer to that and I have to guess, I'm going to guess that based on what I've seen in Nick Hein's footage, which is he loves to stand and bang. So you stand and bang with Damir, you're probably going to lose unless you're, Taisumov. And I don't think that Nick Hein possesses the nuclear missiles in his fists that Taisumov does. So for that reason, I'm also going to take Damir here by KO. Now next up, I believe in the lightweight division. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shaq. We got Narimani. He's minus 250. The comeback on Khalid Taha is plus 210. Now, initially, Narimani was supposed to fight Nasrat Haqparast in his UFC debut. They actually lined it a pick'em, Shaq. But now we got Narimani as a minus 250. He's taking on the newcomer. What's your opinion on this fight?
Yeah, Narimani's a well-rounded fighter. I think this Khalid Taha guy, I don't think he's necessarily a jobber, but, I just think that Narimani's going to be able to bail himself out with the wrestling exchanges. On the feet, it might be a little bit more competitive, but ultimately, at the end of the rounds, I think Nad's wrestling like how we saw him in his fight against Paddy Pimblett. That was a complete 5-round clinic, so I think Narimani's the better fighter. I agree with the line at minus 255 or whatever it is. I just think he's the more well-rounded fighter. I think Taha will go on to win some fights, but I like Narimani in this spot.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Narimani is a guy who He's experienced a lot of things on the local scene. He's gone the 5-round distance. He's beaten hype prospects. You remember when he took out Paddy Pimblett. So, he's done the whole bit. He even knows what UFC Fight Week is like. Because remember, he was getting wrapped up, and then they heard that Nasrat, there was something wrong with his eye. So they had to pull him out. So I think coming in here against a guy like Khalid Taha, and I'll tell you what, Taha, he wasn't half bad in the footage I watched. He is a little stiff. He is a little small for the weight class. But for the most part, he finds ways to win. So I got a lot of respect for him. But that being said, I think that Narimani is a guy who has truly paid his dues and earned his spot in this company. And I think he's going to come out here and shine, man. Whether it's a late finish or a decision victory, I see Narimani having the edge here. And I think his jab will be a big weapon. And next up in the UFC lightweight division, we got Marc Diakiese. He's minus 170. The comeback on Nasrat Haqparast is plus 150. Now, we're very familiar with both guys. Obviously, Marc Diakiese, he's had a bit of a hype train since he came to the UFC. He's had mixed results. And with Nasrat Haqparast, he made his UFC debut on short notice versus Marcin. Didn't get the victory, but he definitely tested the chin of Marcin. So, which way are you leaning here?
Yeah, Diakiese was one of the most hyped up guys in a while, and had those L's against Jakar and Dan Hooker, and we see what both of those guys are doing right now in their career. So I definitely feel like he's faced a higher level competition, even beating guys like Frankie Perez and Lucas Hayeski, who were 13-2 at the time. I know those guys are jobbers, but at least he's had six UFC fights. 6 or 7. What is he? 1, 2.
Who, Diakiese?
Yeah.
He's had 5 UFC fights.
5 UFC fights. So, the guy's very experienced in terms of UFC, and he's still young. He's only 25 years old, and he's already got 5 UFC fights. So, now this isn't a must-win position, for Diakiese. Now, Nasrat Haqparast, we actually bet on him in his fight against Marcin just because, we're always down with that Fade Held party. And, Nasrat definitely needs some work, man. I fear I was initially comparing him to like a Oliver Enkamp situation, when he was getting ready to fight Hot Chocolate, thinking that, this guy's not ready for this level of competition. Now, I think Nasrat's more on the borderline. Enkamp was definitely not ready, but I think Nasrat might be a little in the middle. I think he's around the right people. I know he's putting in those private training sessions with guys like OAM and Arnold Allen and GSP, and he's probably on the same supplement program as well. Skill wise, Nasrat's really green. If you watch his fight before he got into the UFC against that Russian, he shelled up for the first 2 minutes while the Russian bombed off on him, and he was able to get that takedown, and the fight was over. Those type of things don't work in the UFC. And then you watch his fight with Marcin. Now, I know he wobbled Marcin a couple times, but, who doesn't wobble Marcin? And the fact that Marcin, and honestly, in my opinion, was kind of getting the better of the stand-up exchanges for a lot of the fight, was a little worrisome. I feel like Nasrat might need a couple more fights on that NFC local scene, and I don't think Diakiese needs a couple fights. I think Casey's main issue is he's fallen in love with these inefficient, low percentage techniques. He's just fallen in love with all these moves that just really take your energy and really don't really accomplish anything. Do I have questions about his cardio? Yeah, I do, because like we're saying, those moves, I think he just needs to calm down and, get to his basics, because he's such an athletic and physical guy that if he just sticks to his basics, he's going to overpower small guys like Nasrat Haqparast. But I do think that's what's going to happen. I think Nasrat is a good fighter, but I don't think he's ready for a Diakiese. I think Diakiese's experience, his last 2 fights, I feel like they were, a humbling experience for him, to have, to be on such a roll like that and then to have those 2 fights go down like that. But at the end of the day, he had a competitive 2-round fight with Hooker. Now, I know Hooker systematically broke him down, and I know Jakar, fucked up his leg with that calf kick, but at least he came back in that Jakar fight and at least, got it to a split decision. The Hooker fight, no shame at all, in my opinion. That's what Diakiese's in there with. I think it's just a completely different level. It's so shocking to see everyone write Diakiese off, but his boxing really isn't that good. His best attribute is his athleticism and his wrestling. I think he needs to get back to his wrestling. He's such a strong guy, and I think he needs to just abandon these, the John Jones, teep kicks and the and all the spinning shit. And if he sticks to his basics, I actually think he's going to dominate Haqparast. So I got Diakiese. Whether he sticks to those techniques or not, I think he'll ultimately pull out a decision. Nasrat's got a nice left hand. He's got some decent wrestling. But like I said, I think it's decent for, the local level, not the UFC level. Unless he's made big improvements, which he's around the right people, he definitely can do those things. But I think Diakiese's just a little too far ahead of him.
There's this misconception going around that Diakiese is this great striker, right? Like, that's his main style.
Yeah, he ain't no striker.
That's not true, right, Shaq?
Yeah.
He's actually, his best aspect is his physicality and his athleticism, and in turn, he's able to take these guys down, because I was actually, every time I've broken down one of his fights, I always talk about that Frankie Perez fight, how it's 1-1 going to the third round, and he used the takedowns and won the fight. So that, to me, is the sign of a winner. And maybe after that knockout over that complete scrub Teemu Pacquiao, maybe after that, it kind of got to his head a little bit, but at the same time, he stepped up he went from fighting Teemu Pacquiao, and now you're fighting Drakkar Klose, who turns out is actually pretty decent, and Daniel Hooker, you see the run he's on, and out of all the guys that Dan Hooker's fought, Diakiese actually took him to the third round. I mean, my boy Jim Miller, Ross Pearson, and Gilbert Durinho couldn't do all that. So, props to Diakiese. Even Hooker said that he was kind of hard to deal with. He was kind of hard to gauge. And as far as Haqparast, I bet him against Marcin Hell. He gave me a good effort, for plus 320 odds. But you go back and you watch his regional scene fights, and I mean, it's not even... Their regional scene ain't the same as our regional scene, man. If he came over here to the NFC, I don't think he's going to come out here and beat our champion Robert Hale at all. I mean, the fighters don't wear pants in our regional scene. You know what I'm saying, man? They wear shorts, Shaq. So, it's just a different scene. And, he dominated the guys he was given, but all the guys he was given were pretty damn awful. And now he's got to step up and fight Diakiese. And Diakiese is green as well, but I think Diakiese has paid his dues more inside the UFC's octagon. I think he's more seasoned. I think he's experienced a lot more, and I also think he's a way better athlete. He's bigger, and I think that athleticism will come into play in this spot, and I see him coming out here and winning a decision against Nasrat Haqparast. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. He's minus 355, and the comeback on the newcomer, David Zawada, is plus 295. Now, initially it was supposed to be Juban versus Hot Chocolate. My boy Juban had to pull out. He's barely hanging on by a thread, but now they got the newcomer, David Zawada. He's coming in here. He's an experienced guy. What's your opinion on the matchup, Shaq?
Yeah, it's a typical letdown spot for Hot Chocolate. Going from fighting Juban and now fighting this guy that no one's ever heard of. And turns out the guy's actually experienced and, has a similar record to you, to Hot Chocolate. He's got actually one more win than Hot Chocolate. Now, I don't think this is a Craig White type of replacement or a one of these jobbers that are coming in. I think Zawada is actually a decent fighter, and I think he actually will win a UFC fight down the line. Of course, I'm gonna take Hot Chocolate in this one. I just think the late notice, Hot Chocolate's experience level. But, Zawada's been in big fights. I mean, he comes from that KSW organization, and from what we know, I mean, some of those events are bigger than UFC events. So, he's used to, a big stage. So, I don't think the moment's going to get to him. He's also been putting in some work at ATT with Hector Lombard. Hector Lombard brought him in for the CB Dalloway fight to train. So, Zawada seems like an experienced guy. He's not nothing. He doesn't do anything too great, but he's just fairly well-rounded in every area. And we know Hot Chocolate's big problem is definitely that chin. And he at first it wasn't a bad chin, but it's definitely been built to a bad chin because when Mike Perry, cracks him that many times, and then, it really started with the what's his name, Dom Steele fight. Dom Steele, where he was minus similar line to what he is right now, came in and, they had a close fight. And that's when the chin problem started in the Perry situation. And, that Nordine fight, I mean, he blocked the kick, but he still got knocked down. So, we know Hot Chocolate's issue is that chin. But I think he's got heart to, stay conscious. And I think when he starts moving forward, he kind of reminds me of, like, the boxing version of Gilbert Burns. Those guys at Combat Club got some big power. And when he gets moving forward, he starts throwing some devastating punches. So I'm going to go with Hot Chocolate by decision.
The Mike Perry fight, it wasn't just Mike Perry that damaged his chin. It was Marc Goddard that damaged his chin because you know that at the end of every single round of that fight, Mike Perry knocked him out. You know,
like Hot Chocolate would win the first 4 minutes of every round and then get almost knocked out.
You know, Mike Perry knocked out Danny Hot Chocolate 3 times in that fight. You know, Marc Goddard is absolutely disgusting, especially in that finish. Like, how late was that? It was just, you know, maybe he wasn't a fan of Danny Roberts during the Cage Warriors days. But that being said, man, I think Danny Roberts, despite this being the classic letdown spot, you know, he's getting excited for a fight with Juban, and then you got the call you're fighting David Zawada. Who the fuck is that guy? The issue here is David Zawada is a very experienced guy on the regional scene, so now he's coming in here, and it's not like he's some 5-0 guy. Correct? Isn't he like what? Isn't he like 16-3 or something like that, Shaq? So,
yeah.
You know, my boy David Zawada has definitely paid his dues. But that being said, is he good enough to beat Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts? In my opinion, he isn't, man. I think that Danny Hot Chocolate, he gets a bad rep for his chin, but he doesn't get enough credit for his heart, his will to win, and not to mention, the dude's got dynamite in his hands too. I mean, yeah, you know, you fuck around with a guy like Hot Chocolate, he'll put your lights out. Just ask my boy Encamp, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, and Encamp, we haven't heard from Encamp since. So, that being said, I do think Danny Hot Chocolate finds a way to win here. I understand people taking the shot on David because, look, David's experience, and Hot Chocolate has had chin problems in the past, and he gets caught here. Hey, you come out here, you cash a plus 300. But all that said, I think the favorite finds a way to win. I think that he's locked in right now, man. I think he's in the zone. I think he's starting to find himself in there. And, you know, he took his setbacks to some very tough guys in Mike Perry and Nordine Taleb, and I don't think that's going to happen here. So I'm going to go with Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts for the victory. Now, next up, we got the Moroccan gangster. We got Abu Azaitar. He's minus 200. The comeback on Vitor Miranda is plus 170. Now, you going with the Moroccan head honcho, or are you going with the 40-year-old Vitor Miranda?
You know, I think Vitor better be worried that Abu doesn't dump gasoline on him and set him on fire. But turns out Abu's, you know, about that life, man. Apparently Abu's out there in them streets. So, you know, in terms of fighting, was I impressed with Abu? No, I really wasn't. I disagree with the minus 200. I think he's a stiff that just puts his head down.
Don't
and,
say
you know,
don't
but
say
look,
you weren't impressed
Abu,
with
I say that with all respect. Please don't come to Atlanta and dump gasoline on me and kill me. But you know, I think in terms of fighting, you know, he just puts his head down and he throws big hooks. Now, you know, he was in that World Series of Fighting promotion, and he was struggling with guys like Danny Davis Jr., who are like below 500 or maybe one over 500. And I mean, he was getting taken down. He was getting his back taken. I mean, those fights are really close. His fight with his last fight against Michael Laurent, which was in 2016, you know, that guy's a jobber as well. And, you know, he put it on him. So, you know, that's more of what I like to see guys with wrestling when they fight Vitor, because my boy Vitor definitely struggles in that department. But one thing I'll say about Vitor is the heart is definitely not in question. Now, I know he had a little issue with depression after the Chris Camozzi fight. He tore his shoulder in that fight, early in that fight, and had to have surgery on it afterwards, and he ballooned up to 240 pounds. And at age, you know, 38 to 40, that's, you know, super alarming. And, you know, he came back with his fight with Marvin, and I really couldn't tell, man, because I thought it was a spirited effort. You know, Marvin Vettori's a guy that literally just went to split with Israel Adesanya a few months ago, you know what I'm saying? So I definitely didn't think Marvin had a cardio issue or anything. I mean, they were working. They were working in the clinch on the feet. Vitor was breaking him in that third round with his Muay Thai style, and, you know, I admire Vitor's techniques. You know, they don't call him Vitai for no reason. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I think this guy's got super good technique on the feet. I think he's tough. He's got a good chin. It just comes down to the wrestling and the physicality and how well he's, you know, responding to the damage at his age. You know, I think this is one of his more winnable fights in a while. Well, not saying that Camozzi wasn't winnable, because he let everybody down when he fought Camozzi, but I guess Camozzi was on a winning streak. But I think you know, Abu will win this fight just on his physicality. I think that Vitor will crack him a couple times, just because I think Abu has some serious major tells with that ducking down of the head. I think with a guy as experienced as Vitor Miranda, I wouldn't be shocked if this fight kind of went similar to Marcelo Guimarães' fight, because one thing that's remained common in in Vitor's fights is when he gets you hurt, he finishes you. When he was on that 3-fight winning streak, when he had his opportunity to finish, he definitely took care of it. But at 40 years old in the middleweight division, fighting a German gangster, I'm gonna take my boy Abu. Hopefully he doesn't pour gasoline on him and do anything stupid. But my boy Abu needs to be careful out there in them streets.
My boy Vitor needs to be careful on them streets if he beats Abu, because they might find him in the back of a trunk somewhere, you know what I'm saying? So I need to confirm that Vitor Miranda makes it home safely after this fight. But look, that being said, man, I mean, obviously Vitor, he's got the kickboxing background. You remember the fight with Jay Collier? He's getting wrestled, and with 1 second left in the fight, he lands the head kick. 1 second left in the first round. He lands the finishing blow, the head kick, and knocks out Jay Collier. And since that point, he's knocked out a couple other people too. He knocked out Clinton Hester. He knocked out Marcelo Guimaraes. But unfortunately, he had to take an L. Oh, man, should we even talk about the Chris Camozzi L? Is that even excusable? Can we say he was sick?
Allegedly, he tore his shoulder in the first round. So
I can name 80% of the roster that can tear their shoulder and still beat Chris Camozzi. But
Chris Camozzi was on a 3-fight win streak.
There's guys a weight class below that could go 30%, like Kamaru Usman, and still beat Chris Camozzi. But
what's up with my boy Abu? I mean, let's be honest here. He lost that fight with Danny Davis Jr. That guy's like a complete bum.
But let's also be honest. He knocked out Jack Marshman in under a minute. So Abu
Jack Marshman's a jobber.
Jack Marshman's a UFC middleweight. He tried to go to welterweight. Man, yeah. he must have been really fucked up if he had to pull out of a fight with Brad Scott.
Jack Marshman barely beat fucking Ryan James.
Tell me who doesn't barely beat Ryan James. I mean, when you fight
Gerald Mearshart, fucking
what happened when my boy Anthony Sanchez tried to fight that scarecrow?
Well, that guy sucks, but
hey, that guy beat Khalil, bro.
That guy sucks too.
But look, all that being said, look, Vitor, he does have very nice high kicks. He's got the traditional Muay Thai style. He likes to sit back. I think my boy Abu, he might not be as technically sound as Vitor, but he's got that will and that aggression. And he kind of reminds me in a way of like an Alex Cowboy or an Ovin St. Preux, where it doesn't look the prettiest, but the guy hits like a truck, he's effective, and he finds a way to win. He's younger, he's hungrier. I don't care if he's coming off a 2-year layoff, because as you saw last week with my boy Raoni Barcelos, with these experienced guys, the layoffs don't matter as much as they used to. And that's just the bottom line. So, I don't know the science behind that. I just know what I've seen based off these guys coming out here and winning fights. So, all that said, I think the pressure of Abu is going to be too much, and I see him coming through as a favorite. Now, next up in the heavyweight division, Shaq, we got Marcin Tybura. He's minus 245. The comeback on Stefan, the skyscraper Struve, is plus 205. So, you think who's gonna take that third loss in a row here, my man?
Yeah, I feel like this should be a loser goes home fight. I feel like both of these guys, I was high on Tybura. I like the effort against Verdum, and then, I guess, there's no shame in getting knocked out by Black Beast. So I guess I'll take those statements back. But, I feel like he's a guy that he kind of loses focus in there, when he the Verdum fight, no shame, went 5 rounds, but we saw what happened to Verdum in his next fight. And then his fight with Black Beast, first round, he was throwing too many lazy front kicks, too many lazy teeps, and Black Beast would just time him and floor him. And, Black Beast is an athletic, opportunistic guy besides when he's fighting that French guy. But, when he first round, he got floored, and, I mean, that damage to the chin happened. And, that second round, Black Beast gives him that top position. I mean, he rode it out for the entire round. Marcin come back third round. Let's not throw any more lazy teeps or any lazy high kicks. And guess what he does? He tries to take him down, which is, is fine. He has him in that position up against that fence. But then he completely gets lazy and, just lets Black Beast break off from the tie-up and then crack him, and he gets knocked out. So, that's a lack of focus. That's a lack of urgency, in my opinion. 1-on-1, and I need you to seal this fight off. Now, I thought Struve was completely done with the Volkov and Arlovsky fights. And, that might not be the case. Volkov, I mean, just systematically broke him down, dissected him, attacked his body, the low kicks. That training with Shammy Schultz really paid off. That was Volkov's, one fight away from the title. Now his fight with Arlovsky, I definitely thought he had a pulling of the trigger issue. I thought going into the fight he was a little cloudy from his interviews, and I still think he is cloudy. That Marcin Tybura, his last two fights he was in Albuquerque. Now he's back in Poland, so maybe we see a little bit of difference from him. But I think he loses focus at times. I think he's a little lackadaisical at times, and I think he's really slow. And I do question his chin because his fight with Arlovsky, when he got tired in that fatigue state, I mean, he shelled up and he was able to survive. But I think everyone's chin at heavyweight is a little unquestioned. But Struve, I mean, that fight with Volkov was a spirited effort, so I actually gained a lot of respect for him in that fight. Do I agree with the line? No, I don't. I think it should be closer to like minus 175 Tybura, somewhere around that range. But I'm going to take Tybura. I just think that Struve, mentally, I don't think it's really more of a skill thing. I wouldn't be shocked if Struve floored him with an uppercut or, caught him. This is a heavyweight fight. But I think both guys are a little, fragile mentally, but I think Struve just has no, confidence in himself at this point. I think he's fighting himself at this point, like Rashad Evans said. I don't think he's really fighting Tybura. I think he's fighting himself. And, when you start fighting yourself, Dan, it's pretty much over at that point. So I got Tybura by, lackluster 30-27.
Is my boy Tybura not fighting himself either? I mean, first he goes to the worst camp in the world, Jackson's MMA, which, they used to not be the worst, but have you seen the results they've been putting up lately, my man?
Yeah, and another thing is, my boy Struve loves to give up takedowns, and, Tybura will ride out that top and stall him out. So, but, yeah, that Jackson's camp has definitely been not hot lately.
Well, I mean, if they're training with Frank Lester, they're winning, but if they're training with Six Gun Gibson, They ain't quite been winning, my man. So I wonder which one Marcin was working with. But bottom line, he went to Jackson's and he lost 2 in a row. So now he's like, yeah, fuck that place. I'm going back to my roots. And look, Marcin Tybura is a good point fighter. He's got that nice Polish striking style down. The jabs on point, the front kicks to the face. He can mix it up, and he doesn't have a half-bad ground game, too. When guys have taken him down, he's been able to scramble and get back on top. He had a very good fight with the Black Beast. He got caught with a fucking nuclear missile and went down. I don't think that was a quit job at all, but, it was a good fight. Put up a good effort versus Werdum. The thing with Stefan Struve is that, we talk about one day he's going to finally use his range and this and that, and I just think he's a slow, unathletic guy, but he's super tough. Like, for example, I could see a scenario where Marcin comes out here and expends everything he has trying to get Stefan Struve out of there, and then he's got nothing left. And I do think that Marcin Tybura has a suspect gas tank. And the reason I say that is because you remember that time I max bet Marcin Tybura to beat Arlovsky, who was coming off a 5-fight losing streak. And, Tybura has a good first round, and then he totally quits in the second round. I was lucky that the ref didn't stop it. And then they're both gassed out to a point of no return. Andrei Arlovsky trips. Marcin gets on top of him, lays on him for the rest of the round. And I won a majority decision. And after that, I was like, wow, so my boy Marcin might actually be a fraud, huh? So I think this is actually a closer fight than the line indicates. I do understand why Marcin is favored because I think skills-wise he is the better fighter. But, it's funny to say that, someone's not better mentally than Stefan Struve because, Struve's the kind of guy. He's had panic attacks before fights and canceled fights on day of. But we've also seen him pull off some of the biggest comebacks in UFC history. I know you remember that one fight long-ass time ago when he was a fucking Crimson Mask. Who was that shit against, man? Was that against Christian Moorcraft or some shit? Or, one of those jobbers? You remember that fight? Where he was just getting the absolute shit beaten out of him?
Paul Bentuela?
No, not that one, because that one went all 3. And I remember he threw that flying knee and got dropped by my boy Paul Buentella. But there was one fight where he was a bloody mess, and it was early on.
It's probably Moorcraft.
I think it might have been this dude, Denis Stosic.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Back at UFC 99. You know what I'm saying? I think back then, that dude put him in a bloody mess. And it was a 10-7 first round. And then Struve pulled off the upset or the comeback in the second round. So he's got that capability. That was a long-ass time ago. Since that point, he let's not sit here and act like you didn't hand my boy Stipe his first L, because he 100% did. Look, if Stefan Struve retires today, he'll always be able to tell his grandkids, I knocked out Stefan Struve and I beat Minotauro Nogueira. So no matter what, he can take that with him to the grave.
You mean Stipe Miocic?
Sorry, who did I say?
Said Stefan can tell his grandkids that he knocked out Stefan Struve.
That's fucking hilarious. But anyways, what I meant was Stefan Struve can tell his grandkids that he knocked out Stipe Miocic. Stefan Struve can tell his grandkids that he went out there and beat the legend Minotauro Nogueira in Brazil. You know, obviously none of that has anything to do with this fight. I'm just giving my boy a little credit, right? But all that being said, I see Marcin Tybura coming out here super hard, almost getting the finish, gassing out, and then either Stefan Struve wins the second and third round, or he finishes Marcin Tybura. So I'm actually going to go with the upset here. I think my boy Struve stops his skid, and I think he finally gets another win. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got Glover Teixeira. He's minus 150, the comeback on Corey, beast in 25-8, overtime. Anderson is plus 130. Now, Shaq, I mean, we can break this one down pretty simply. I mean, either Glover's going to knock this dude the fuck out, or Glover's about to get wrestle fucked and he might have to take plan B the next day. Which way you leaning, man?
Yeah, I think Corey's one of the best fighters in the 205-pound division, but we all know the glaring flaw in his game. It's that chin. I mean, and, you can make excuses for the chin and all this shit, but, I mean, the guy's got a bad chin, plain and simple. This started back when he fought John Vellante. It's so funny. People think John Vellante was dominating that fight with the low kicks. If you guys look at the cards, Corey was up 2 rounds going into the 3rd round, so that just shows you how bad Vellante is. Not that matters, but, I think Corey, he's got good Frankie Edgar-style movement on the outside. I think Mark Henry's done a good job. He's done a good job teaching him that style. And, he's got good movement. But where he falls into trouble is when he starts standing still and he starts getting a little overzealous and he starts, trading power punches a little bit too much and exposing that chin. And, I mean, it's happened countless times. The Vellante fight, the Tom Lawler fight, even though he got 230-27s in that fight, he wobbled one because, he let Lawler back him up and be the aggressor. And he doesn't have the chin, consistently to get through things like that. And we saw what happened in the Jimmy fight, shooting from a little too far out, right hand, left hook, out cold. The OSP fight, he's probably up 2 rounds. At the end of that first round, he got dropped after winning the entire round. The guy's just a big liability out in space. You never know. He's one of the true guys where you never know when one of those shots is going to ring his bell and he's going to pull a Michael Chandler, or something like that. So, he's he falls in that category. I think it's a good matchup for him, though. I think Glover's definitely getting up there in age. I mean, Glover's as stiff as a board these days. He's slow. He's, his footwork's a little. I mean, now it makes sense why Gustafsson looked that good against him. You know what I'm saying? The guy comes in straight. He's slow. His head movement's lacking these days. He's getting wobbled by Jared Cannonier these days. I mean, he's definitely getting up there in age. His fight with Serkinov, I think it's just more of a Misha Serkinov being a fraud thing. I mean, we told you guys on the podcast that, if you put Misha in one bad spot, that's it, and that's exactly what happened. And, it's funny, Glover's wrestling defense really ain't that bad, in my opinion. I know he got taken out by Phil Davis, but let's not forget this guy actually took down Ryan Bader. He took down OSP, which, some people might not think it's impressive or not. But, I mean, I think besides the Phil Davis fight, his wrestling's been on point for the most part. But where I see him winning this fight is by touching that chin. Do I think it's going to happen? It seems like everyone and their mom's on Corey. It opened like, plus 220, and now it's plus 130. Kind of reminds me of Miles Jury last week, how everyone was on him. So I actually am going to side with Corey. I think he's going to stay conscious and win a decision. But, I mean, with that guy at plus 130 right now, as what it is right now, I mean, there's no value in that. Like we said, at any moment with one of these punches. But I respect Corey, man. I think he's got the drive. I think he's got the will. I think he's tough. I think he's arguably the most well-rounded fighter in the division. It's just one big major problem. But if he can work around that problem, I think he's going to 30-27 Glover.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly pretty simple in my eyes. Obviously, the way it'll play out will probably not be very simple, but for me, it's basically, can Corey stay conscious? If he stays conscious, he's coming out here and he's winning this decision because his work rate's on point. Man, his offensive striking's on point too. He's got that volume style. He's mixing in the takedowns all the time. He's in better shape than all these guys. He can push a better pace than all these guys, but every single fighter has their flaw. For Glover, the flaw is that, you know, he's slower than my grandma. You know what I'm saying? I have to help Glover at the supermarket, you know, grab things from the aisle. But when it comes to a fist fight, power is the last thing to go. And Glover hits like an absolute truck. And in these 15 minutes, you know, one thing I want to say, and Shaq, did you want to bring up how, Glover usually loses to, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, my boy Glover, you know, he struggles against black guys besides OSP, but...
He struggles against black wrestlers.
Against black wrestlers, he is 0 for.
0 for 3. My boy Corey fits that description, you know what I'm saying? So, but...
Actually, what about Rashad Evans?
Yeah, well, Rashad, I mean, was fucking walking into the octagon with a cane, you know what I'm saying? But,
So we gotta... What's his record against black guys, black wrestlers?
He lost to John Jones. He lost to Rumble. He lost to Phil Davis.
So he's 1-3 against black wrestlers.
Okay, but look, all seriousness, you know, it's fun to joke around. I really think that Corey Anderson, he could come out here and have the Phil Davis game plan. The issue, though, is that he's not as durable as a guy like Phil Davis. Because one thing I'll say about Phil Davis, you know, I like to make fun of his style. He's boring as fuck. You know, if I have trouble going to sleep and you know, I can't take Ambien or something like that, I'll put on a Phil Davis fight to fall asleep. But all that being said, my boy Phil Davis went the distance with Anthony Rumble Johnson. He ate his hardest shots, and it was no problem. I'll tell you right now that Corey Anderson, he ain't lasting 1 minute with Anthony Rumble Johnson.
Phil Davis had the best chin in the 205 division.
Phil Davis can take a shot. Corey can't. So look, if Corey somehow doesn't go down, Corey's going to win a decision here. He's going to outwork Glover. He's going to mix in the takedowns and even his striking in terms of offense and not defense. Offensively, he's got way more volume than Glover. The thing is, Glover hits like an absolute truck, and with that Corey Anderson chin, it doesn't take much, my man. So, you know, honestly, as sad as it is, because Corey actually might be the better fighter, I do think somewhere along the way, Glover's going to catch him and knock him out, and we're going to be like, wow, Corey's so damn chinny. And then Corey's going to come out and make an article on Instagram about how he's not chinny, about how, you know, these guys just hit hard. And, you know, they do hit hard, but certain people like my boy Phil Davis can take it, and Corey simply can't. But if Corey doesn't go down, he'll win. I think he does go down. I'm going to go with Glover Teixeira by knockout. Main event of the evening. We got Anthony Lionheart Smith. He's minus 220. The comeback on Mauricio Shogun Rua, or as we like to say in Brazil, Mauricio Shogun, is plus 180. Now, the legend Mauricio's back. And Shaq, like I said at the beginning of the show, you know, because people want to say that my boy Shogun's on his way out, but the reality here is that he's on the longest win streak of his UFC career, longer than when he was the UFC champion, and now he's taking on the emerging, rising contender Anthony Smith. He's a 6'5" light heavyweight. He's been knocking out legends back to back. I mean, how do you see this main event going down at UFC Hamburg?
Yeah, you know, I think Anthony Smith's been beating these legends back to back that are, you know, on 4 and 5 fight losing streaks and on 4 or 5 fight, you know, getting knocked out streaks, you know, but I do respect Anthony Smith. I think coming up from 85, you know, he is a big boy. I think he's gonna, you know, they were actually standing up next to each other. I really didn't see a size difference, but I expect a size difference when Anthony Smith reloads back up after weigh-ins. But he's a big boy coming up from 85. You know, he's 12-2 in his last 14 fights or something like that. So the guy's been doing a whole lot of winning recently, and we know Shogun definitely is the fighter with the more damage taken throughout his career. But even though Anthony Smith's been actually knocked out more times, but, you know, we'll dismiss some of those. But as far as the fight goes, you know, Smith's definitely a big boy. And when Smith gets moving forward, he's definitely scary. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5", and I mean, he can hit. You know, the slow starting thing, it's going to be interesting to see if it comes back out in this fight because, you know, like when you're fighting Rashad Evans, like, you know, at least he took care of business the way you're supposed to take care of business because, you know, a lot of other guys probably wouldn't have done it that fast. But as far as the line goes, minus 220. I don't know if Anthony Smith's that type of guy. I think he's a guy that in most of his fights, he's either coming from behind or fucking, he's a quick finish. In most of his fights, he's coming from behind. And another thing is, anytime Anthony Smith fights a Brazilian, just put it this way, things get very hairy. I mean, if we look about his strike force in UFC, when he fought Braga Neto, he lost to a Brazilian. When he fought Leleco Guimarães, he did win that fight, but that third round was very sketchy. He lost to Cesar Ferreira. He lost to Thiago Majeda. So, historically against Brazilians, he has had some trouble. But Shogun, that doesn't really matter, I guess. But Shogun's been on a 3-fight win streak. He's been looking real good. But the thing is, Shogun's been fighting, the John Volantes of the world and the little Nogs and the Corey's. And Corey was a big win because, Corey is a younger light heavyweight, but we know why Shogun was able to steal that decision away due to Corey's suspect chin. Now, with Anthony Smith, I do fear that if he starts moving forward in the late rounds that, he can find Shogun's chin. But I feel like Anthony Smith's chin really hasn't been tested that much, at least lately, especially at this big of a stage and against this type of opponent. Now, I know Shogun's old, but one thing about Shogun is the power never leaves, and Shogun's got an ability to find chins. And when he finds chins, he'll definitely swarm on you as well, and he'll get you out of there. And Smith's been finished by strikes more than 8 times. How many times is it?
I mean, you got it right, bro. The thing is, most of those were early on in his career, and then he went on this huge streak.
Yeah, 100%. But, those things did happen, and those things can definitely be brought out to light, just like, Shogun getting knocked the fuck out can definitely be brought back to light. In this type of situation, I like to side with the dog here. I like Shogun in this fight. I think Anthony Smith he might be looking past Shogun. I know he got put in the spot for a reason because he is an exciting fighter. And, I feel like he's talking about the Gus fight, this and that. He's saying that Shogun's going to be a first-round knockout, and if he does that, props out. But it's going to be interesting to see if he's really about that life because, Shogun puts the fear in guys even at this age. So when they start working, I really want to see if he's about that life. I think Shogun's got a I think he's got an issue, sometimes when he's exchanging straight rights, left hooks, these guys, even guys like Volante kind of been beating him to the punch these days. But, he's been finding a way to get better as the fight goes along these days, which is something that was kind of different from his past. So, I don't know if I trust Anthony Smith at this minus 220 line, a guy that, habitually likes to start off from his back or lose 2 rounds to, 40-year-old Hector Lombard. And granted, he did come back and win, but I don't put Shogun. I don't compare Shogun to Rashad and Hector. Those guys were getting knocked out 4 or 5 fights in a row. Those guys can't win a fight to save their lives. So I think Shogun's a little better than those guys. So I'm going to take the plus 180 in Shogun. I think he's going to get the job done by knockout somewhere in that second, third round. I think Smith's going to be having his way early, but I think one of these shots is going to really ring Smith's bell, and I think he's going to resort back to his old ways. And then I think Shogun's got a lot to fight for. Cormier already, expressed interest that he wants to fight Shogun, and I think Smith's just looking at Shogun like an old fuck, and I think Shogun's one of those old fucks that you shouldn't do that against. So, I'm going to take Shogun.
Shogun's one of my all-time favorite fighters, and he's one of these guys that he's on his way out, but he can still knock anyone out. Similar to a guy like Hendo, except that Shogun, even though he lost to Hendo twice, in my opinion, his striking arsenal is a lot wider. Obviously, you've seen him break people down with leg kicks in the Machida fight. You've seen him knock dudes out with punches in the Chuck Liddell fight, and most of his knockouts too. I mean, he's always going out there knocking people out. And I mean, you go back to when you see my boy Shogun and he's brawling in that party in Brazil. My dude Shogun's a real natural born fighter. And people talk about his leg locks, even though he's only got one on his career against Kevin Randleman. He's got that capability. My boy Shogun is super well rounded, and he's one of the only guys that has been able to make that, Brazilian Muay Thai style work for over a decade, man. I mean, he's really been doing this shit that long, and he is that good. But the one issue that Shogun's always had has been his cardio. He comes out so hard trying to finish you that sometimes he kind of does become a walking punching bag. And one thing about Anthony Smith that he gets a reputation for, despite knocking out Rashad Evans in under a minute, which isn't really much of an accomplishment because, you know, my boy Rashad's completely done. But the thing with Anthony Smith, his MO is usually knocking dudes out late, like in that third round, because Anthony Smith, you know, despite his physical tools, despite the fact that he's 6'5", he often gets off to a very slow start. But the thing with him is he's the kind of guy that once you start to slow down on him, he's going to get to you, man. He really will. And then he's going to start throwing those long kicks. He's going to start mixing in the knees. He's going to start stringing together his combinations. And if Shogun doesn't get him out of there in the first round and a half, and then Shogun starts huffing and puffing, that's when you might see a vicious KO. I'm not convinced it's going to be like the Ovens knockout where, you know, Mauricio got caught right away. I think it's going to happen a little bit later, but I do think it's going to happen. And I'm going to go with Anthony Lionheart Smith to get the biggest victory of his MMA career. And then, you know, he can retire after this fight, even though he won't. He can retire after this fight and tell his kids that I beat Mauricio Shogun Hua, Rashad Evans, and Hector Lombard. I did it. I had a great career, but you know it's not going to end there. You know he's going to keep chasing glory, and we'll see what happens with the rest of his career, because even though a win over Shogun, I mean, it's fucking Shogun, I'm still not convinced that he's going to come out here and beat the Dominic Reyeses of the world, beat the Justin Ledets, beat the Aleksandar Rakics. I kind of want to see him against those kind of prospects after this, even though name-wise it might not make sense, but ability-wise, I do think it makes sense. So all respect and love to the legend Mauricio Shogun, but I think this is a very brutal and unforgiving sport, and I see Anthony Smith coming out here and knocking out Shogun. Well, Shaq, now we got to hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute. It's time to get some DraftKings advice. And joining us now on the Big Marley Minute is Big Marley himself. Kyle, how's it going, man?
Great, man. Looking forward to some early Sunday fights. Start off the day with a sweat.
Yeah, you know, obviously we love our Sunday football, but now we get some Sunday MMA in Germany, and it's a pretty damn good card in terms of prospects, man.
Yeah, man, a lot of newbies. I don't think most people playing DraftKings are going to be doing the work, so I think we'll have a good edge here.
Well, that's why I got the man Big Marley on the Big Marley Minute right here, right now, on Half the Battle to break this down so you don't have to. And look, this main event between Mauricio Shogun and Anthony Smith, hell of a fight, man. You know for a fact, well, I say you know for a fact it's not going the distance, but I believe that was said about Lewis and Ngannou as well. But just knowing by the way that these two throw bombs, I have a feeling someone's taking a canvas nap. The question is who?
Yeah, this is my favorite fight to target because I don't see it going the distance. I mean, minus 360 fight doesn't go to decision. Vegas is definitely on the same page as we are. I'm just not confident in which one it will be. So I want exposure to both these guys. I would lean at Shogun as my preferred play because he's a lot cheaper, and if he gets the knockout, close to 100 points maybe, is going to be big time for a $7,500 price tag, whereas it's not as big for $8,700, but whoever wins, I think you will need in your lineup. So I might be going all in on this fight, maybe like a 60-40 Shogun, something like that, but I like this one a lot. My favorite fight to target.
So, Corey Anderson versus Glover Teixeira, it's the classic idiot versus genius situation because you're going to look like a genius when you correctly predict that Glover knocks him out or that Corey grinds him out, but you're going to look like an idiot when you pick Glover and he gets grinded out or when you pick Corey and he gets knocked out. So, I mean, which one's it going to be?
This is another one I want exposure to both sides. I think these are my two favorite fights on the card to target. Especially if you're using multiple lineups and can throw both people in different lineups. I'm going to go with Teixeira, though. I think that chin on Anderson is just 15 minutes. I think it's going to get caught at one point. And he's not the greatest at holding people on the ground. He's great at getting them to the ground, but he doesn't hold them there the whole round. So I think Tex will be able to get back up, throw some bombs, and he only really needs one. So I'm going to take more Tex. I'm picking him to win. But I think you got to hedge here as well if you're making multiple lineups, and you got to have some Anderson because, like I said, he can get those takedowns and he can get multiple takedowns, and that's what you like in DraftKings. So if he can avoid getting knocked out, he'll score highly as well. So I like both guys. I'm going to pick Tex.
So the big men are fighting. Stefan Struve, he's 6 feet tall. Marcin Tybura, they say he's 6'3", but I think he's more like 6'5", and It's interesting. Tybura's kind of a point fighter. Stefan Struve, you never know what to expect, but on his best day, he knocked out Stipe Miocic. He beat Minotauro in Brazil. But Marcin Tybura's come through a couple times as well. Which way are you leaning?
I'm going to go with Tybura for the pick here. But I think I would rather, if I was making one lineup, and I had to use this fight, I would rather just use Struve at 7,200. Not only can you afford a loss at 7,200, but I think he's got a okay shot at winning this fight. And my problem with Tybura is he's $9,000 and he's never scored more than 90 points, which is what we'd be looking for at that price tag. I just don't see him going out there and getting a first round knockout, which is what you would need at that salary. So I think he's just a better GPP play than a cash game play. I don't think I'd play him there. And then Struve, I think you can use in both cash, punt if you want. And then I think he could get a win in GPPs and maybe score 80 to 90 points. And that's big time at the $7,200 price tag. So my preferred play is Struve, but I am going to pick Tybura to win this fight, probably by decision.
So Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts, he was initially supposed to fight Alan Juban. Now he's taking on the experienced newcomer David Zawada. It's a pretty wide line, but I mean, when my boy Danny Hot Chocolate wins fights, he tends to knock people the fuck out. And you think he's going to do something like that here?
Yeah, I think someone's getting knocked out here. And Roberts, yeah, it's hard to pick against him. But he's the most expensive guy on the card. I don't see him going for any takedowns, so you're really going to need that knockout for him to score the most on the card. And then Zawada being the cheapest guy, I almost like him more as a play because he could get that knockout too. Roberts doesn't have the best chin. And if Zawada can get a knockout at 6,800, you're going to need him to win a GBP. So I'd prefer him. But this is another fight where it should end early. Whoever wins should score highly. I'll have more Zawada, but I think Roberts will end up making my player pool. I'd just rather kind of pay down for those other 9,000 guys and save a few $100. But I'm sure he makes my pool. I would just prefer Zawada if I was making one lineup.
So Bartosz Fabinski is making his return. He's taking on the very tough Emil Meek. And I feel like this is a spot where if you get the winner right, you're going to rack up some points because with Bartosz, he's a relentless takedown guy. He's a grinder. And with Emil Meek, he's a knockout artist. So, shit, I mean, you think it's going to be a grind or you think it's going to be a KO?
Maybe even a little bit of both. I think it'll be a grind the first 2 rounds and then maybe a third-round knockout from Meek. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. But really, I think Fabinski's the better DraftKings play because of that grinding aspect of his game. He's going to go for multiple takedowns. He's going to try and keep this fight on the ground as much as he can, and that's what you like in DraftKings. And he's only 7,800, so you're going to need some dogs. I think he's going to be real popular this week, but I like him. I'm going to have some of them, but I just don't see him winning. Like I said, I think Meek's going to end up finding him late in the third round and getting that knockout. But he's priced at 8,400, and I think it's going to be hard to pay that off with a third-round knockout. So I like him less. I'm sure he makes my player pool at least with one lineup. But I do like Fabinski more as a play here. And I'm going to have, I don't know, probably close to the field. I'm guessing he's going to be 30 to 40% owned. I'll probably be around that, maybe a little bit lower.
So Damir Hadzovic is taking on Nick Hein, and we know Damir's weakness. That's tying him up against the fence. That's taking him down. But the thing is, Nick Hein loves to stand and bang. You think Nick Hein's going to change up the game plan here and try to go all wrestling? Or you think they're going to stand and bang until one man falls? And in which case, if they do, I'd say Damir has the edge there.
Yeah, I think Damir would have a big edge there, so I don't think Hein's going to want a lot of that. This is really – I'm just going to fade this fight altogether, to be honest. I don't really have a lot of interest in Hadzovic just because I think he is going to get it grinded out, maybe a boring decision. So I don't really want the loser in my lineup. And then with Hein being the winner, he's not going to pay that $8,500 off. He's never even scored more than 71 points. So I would rather just fade this fight completely and hope that it is a boring decision with Hein winning, because if Hadzovic gets that knockout and I don't have him, I'm probably going to be in trouble.
So Aleksandar Rakic is taking on Justin Ledet, and I low-key think these are two of the best prospects at 205 pounds, just on skills alone. But now they're matching each other up, and someone's UFC O has got to go. Who's it going to be?
Ooh, man, I think this is probably the toughest fight on the card to call, to be honest. And I've gone back and forth a few times this week. Right now, I'm leaning towards Rakic, But since I'm having such a tough time picking who's going to win, I haven't been throwing it in many lineups. I've kind of just been avoiding this fight. I think it will be pretty popular in general, and I don't think either one of these guys are going to want to go to the ground, so we're not going to get a lot of takedown points. So you're really relying on a knockout from whoever you like to score highly. So I really don't hate fading it since I don't feel confident in either guy. But if you are confident in either guy, I think that they're a good play if you think they can get the finish. Because they're right there at the mid-range. Ledet's 8,300. Rakic is only 7,900. If either one of them gets that finish, they're for sure paying off those price tags. I just see this going to a decision. I'd rather just avoid it, I guess. I think Rakic will be a lot more popular on DraftKings, so I kind of like Ledet more as a GPP play for that reason. But I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with this. Maybe one of each, maybe full fade. This is a tough one to call. I'm looking forward to watching it, though.
So Damian Stasiak, he's taking on Pingyuan Liu, and it's kind of interesting, man, because look, Damian Stasiak, he went 3 hard rounds with a top 10 guy in Pedro Munoz, but now he's welcoming in the Chinese fighter. We know these Chinese fighters have been killing it, man. Li Jingliang, Yan Zonan, Wang Guan, Song Yadong. So the question here is Pingyuan Liu going to be one of the next emerging Chinese prospects, just like the guys I mentioned? Or do you think that Damian Stasiak's UFC experience is simply too much in this spot?
I mean, I think the UFC is hoping that Liu can get the win here to help build that Asian market. But I think I am going to side with them, actually. I think overall it's a good fight to target because, I mean, Stasiak, if he's going to win, you know he's going to go with the grappling-based game plan, and he's probably going to get a submission if he gets the win. But I just think I've never been impressed with Stasiak myself. I think Liu's just going to be the better fighter, and if he can keep it on the feet, I think it should be his fight to lose. I am nervous. He does go for a lot of takedowns. He could get caught maybe in a submission on the way in, and he doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. I'm hoping it's improved. I mean, Stasiak's not the greatest wrestler, so if he can keep this on the feet, I'm going to go with Liu to win this fight, maybe by knockout or decision. So he's my preferred play at 8,000. But like I said, if you think Stasiak's going to win, he's going to go in there with a grappling-based game plan. He should be pretty low owned, so I don't hate him in GPPs. But my preferred play is going to be Pingyuan Liu.
So last but not least, Manny Bermudez is taking on Davey Grant. This fight was scheduled once before, and we know Manny Bermudez, he's a submission artist, but the issue here is if Marc Goddard is reffing this fight, you could be fucked if you're picking Manny because Marc Goddard is Davey Grant's biggest fan. And if Davey Grant is in any sort of trouble, Marc Goddard, he'll stand them back up mid-submission. He'll probably even warn Manny Bermudez for grabbing the shorts, even if he's not grabbing the shorts. So, you know, Goddard factor aside, which way you going?
I'm going to go Manny. I don't even think he'll need a whole lot of time if it hits the ground. So I don't see this getting stood up. I think he's going to be pretty active if it's down there, rack up his advanced points, and then end up finding a submission. I am worried about him getting the fight to the ground. He doesn't have the greatest wrestling ability. And I think Grant probably has the edge on the feet here. But Grant always goes for takedowns, man. Even if he's winning on the feet, the guy just shoots in for takedowns. It's almost like just a habit of his. And I think it's going to cost him here. I think he's going to end up taking it to the ground. Manny's going to capitalize on it and get a submission. So Bermudez is the play here. I'm going to be fading Grant. I like Bermudez quite a bit. He's one of my favorite plays, I think.
Well, Kyle, that's why you are the DraftKings guy for Half the Battle. They can follow you at Big Marley 3, and I believe we got 2 more events back-to-back, and it's time to get these wins, my man.
Let's do it, man. Follow me on Twitter. My write-up for DraftKings is only $7.99. I'll be posting links there, and hope we all win some money on Sunday. Good luck.
Yes, sir, Kyle. We'll speak soon, my man.
All right, take care.
You too, brother. And that's why Kyle Marley is the DraftKings guy for Half the Battle. Well, Shaq, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Hamburg?
I'm going to say the fight to watch is going to be Ledet versus Rakic. You know, there's a lot of conflicting opinions. I think even though Ledet's first fight at 205, I do think, you know, besides Reyes, I think these are the 2 top prospects in the division. And And I think whoever wins this fight is going to be in prime position to get a big fight. I think Ledet, I think he's a matchup problem, right away. So, and Rakic's a K1 striker, and he's a big boy as well. So if he wins this fight and puts out an undefeated guy like Ledet who's been smoking everyone, that's a big win. And for Ledet, if he can get this win, smoke this guy who everyone has been getting their ass beat against, I think the winner of this fight is going to be getting a big fight next.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you have to watch Rakic versus Ledet. It's literally the top two prospects at 205 pounds that everyone doesn't know about. I mean, one of these guys or both of these guys are going to make big waves, so you got to pay attention. I mean, their skill set is very, very high. But for me, my fight to watch is Marc Diakiese versus Nasrat Haqparast. Look, Marc Diakiese opened at minus 300. He's currently minus 170. That means that a lot of people have a lot of faith in Nasrat Haqparast, and they were very impressed with his UFC debut. I know he's a very connected guy, and Marc Diakiese at one point was looked at as one of the brightest prospects at 155 pounds. So this is honestly a crossroad fight between both of these guys, and it's going to be a very big win for whoever comes out here and gets their arm raised. So for that reason, Marc Diakiese versus Nasrat Haqparast is my fight to watch. Now, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC Hamburg?
Yeah, my fighter to watch is going to be Pingyuan. He's the first fight of the night, and we know that Chinese MMA is growing rapidly, and they're bringing guys over. You got girls like my girl Yan Zhao Nam. We got Kenan Song Yadong. Chinese MMA is getting really good.
Wang Guan.
Liji's fighting Cheeto in a couple of weeks. So, Chinese MMA is booming right now, so keep an eye out for Pingyuan Liu.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm very excited about this card. A lot of people are talking shit, but when you look at it, it's filled with prospects. Going to be a very exciting Sunday afternoon of fights. And Shaq, my fighter to watch is Abu Azaitar. I mean, this is a guy that on the regional scene, he knocked out Jack Marshman under a minute. Articles have been coming out about what this guy does outside of the cage. And to me, I'm always intrigued by that. And not only that, it's a historic moment. He's the first Moroccan fighter to step inside the UFC's octagon. And I don't know if you know about Moroccans, dude, but they got a lot of pride. And this is a big deal in their history. I mean, just like it was a big deal when CR was the first Afghani inside the UFC's octagon. Just like it was a big deal when Chito Vera was the first Ecuadorian inside the UFC's octagon. So I think it's going to be a big deal when Abu Azaitar steps his feet on that UFC octagon, and he's the first Moroccan. And if he can come out here and get a win over, an established veteran like Vitor Miranda, we're going to be looking at some very exciting fights with Abu Azaitar. So for that reason, he is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down this Sunday afternoon, UFC Hamburg. I'm very excited. Honestly, we haven't even made a play yet because what we're eyeing, the line keeps getting better. So it might come down to the wire. It might come down to the last minute. But bottom line, all our clients, they will be notified as soon as we make it, and it's time to get a big win this weekend, my man, and that's the plan.
Yes, sir. 100%. Got to get back on track.
Indeed, indeed. Well, you can follow me at Best Fight Picks. You can follow Shaq at MMA Genius 05. You can subscribe to Best Fight Picks at bestfightpicks.com, at maxbetseason.com, or subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Check out our Instagram at Best Fight Picks Official. Hook up those 5-star reviews on iTunes. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.